Welcome to Last Night in Basketball. I'm Jared Dubin. Jalen Green is absolutely on fire in the month of March. After struggling pretty badly through the first few months of the season, he's taken his game to an entirely new level over the last month. He's averaging 28.5 points per game, shooting better than 50% from the field and 42% from beyond the arc. There's a tendency to attribute the shooting bump to the absence of Alperen Şengün, but head coach Ime Udoka doesn't agree, and neither do I.
And even when Jalen was struggling earlier in the year, he had the same quality looks.
That's Udoka talking about Green, and he's right. When you look at second spectrum, his expected effective field goal percentage during both of those stretches is almost exactly the same. But there are definitely a couple things that have changed in recent weeks. Earlier in the year, Green was seeing help defenders all over the place on his drives to the basket, and worse, he was just driving right into them and contorting himself trying to make the shot. His decision-making on drives to the rim was frankly just pretty bad early in the year, and his finishing on those drives was somehow even worse. He would drive himself into a crowd, and despite being next to 3, maybe 4 defenders, he'd just go up in the air anyway without any semblance of a plan. He'd get himself an advantage off the dribble by doing something like putting the defender on his hip, but then he'd waste that advantage and jump right into the shot blocker. Or he'd get into the paint, see that he had nowhere to go, snake through the crowd, and still decide, hey, I'm going to put up the shot anyway. That type of stuff leads to the horrendous inefficiency we saw earlier in the year. But things have changed a whole lot for him in recent weeks. He's attacking the basket with so much more force, and when he gets to the rim, he's going up strong and trying to finish through contact over defenders instead of trying to contort his body and finish around them so that even if he misses, he doesn't get a foul either. He just looks so much more confident, so much more in control off the bounce. At least some of that has to be because Green is seeing help far less often when he drives to the basket. And I do think this is somewhat attributable to the absence of Şengün, and specifically because the Rockets are playing so much smaller without him out there and using more floor spacers around Green. There's also a lot that's changed with Green as a jump shooter. Early on in the season, he had this incredibly bad habit of jumping to his left, to his right, or fading backwards when he was taking jumpers, so much so that he only went straight up and down on 21.6% of his jumpers through February, according to Second Spectrum. You're extremely unlikely to shoot well on these plays. The conversion rate is not high at all, and Green's was even worse. He shot only 33%, and those jumpers made up like 80% of his jumpers. Fast forward to March, and Green has just been showing significantly better balance when he rises and fires. He's jumping straight up and down so much more often, almost twice as often according to the Second Spectrum tracking data. And surprise, surprise, he's shooting far better when he jumps straight up and down than he did when he was jumping left, right, sideways, backwards. 45% on those jumpers as opposed to the 33% on fading in one direction earlier in the year. He's gotten so confident in his jumper that he's actually doing the Steph Curry style turnaround while the ball is in the air kind of thing. Look where the ball is when Green turns around because he knows this shot is going in the basket. That's such a massive difference in terms of his confidence and in terms of the type of shooter that he is. But there's also been a pretty big difference on those shots where he is off balance, which still make up the majority of his jumpers. He went from 33% to 41%, and the league average is about 36%. So now he's above average. When you take a really talented, really athletic player and you put him in more space, you get him easier drives to the basket, and he gets himself more in balance on his jumper, and he starts making the shots that are only possible because of his athleticism in the first place, that's a recipe for a breakout, and that's what we're seeing from Jalen Green. Thank you for watching Last Night in Basketball. Head on over to lastnightinbasketball.com and subscribe today.